We will begin with the bracket of the transformation of financial infrastructure. And our first speaker, Michael Cyrus, will talk about, I'm very happy to have him here in person. He will talk about a very ambitious topic. He will talk about secure worldwide interbank asset transfer. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. I will talk today about SWIAT. We have been working on this particular initiative at DEKA for around 3 years, probably 3.5 years. And we started with the idea to create a front office trading system for repos and securities lending. And when we were analyzing what we have here, we of course immediately found out that in the front office, you can transact transactions within nanoseconds, right? So you have high frequency, not in Germany, because German regulators don't like it, but at least in principle, you are able to execute transactions in the nanoseconds time scale. And when you do that, and when you have done the first transactions, then a lot of people in the back office run around frantically, grab the phone, call their counterparties, and once they have a common understanding of the infrastructure of the transaction, then actually they send themselves faxes to confirm the transaction. So the back office part of most banks is hopelessly outdated. It's arcane, it's fragmented, it's hierarchical, and it's extremely expensive. The old business model of banks could be summarized with a 3-3-3 type of rule. Your cost base increases more or less 3% in a year. That's no problem because your balance sheet also increases 3% in a year. And well, probably at 3 o'clock you go to the golf course. That does not work any longer. Balance sheet can't grow. Capital has become extremely expensive for banks. So the old business model is broken to a certain extent. It's broken since 2008 in Europe, 2012 and 2013, and its limitations became glaringly obvious again during the Corona crisis. So we all knew we had something to do. Well, that's our mission statement. We want to decentralize and democratize the global financial infrastructure and enable secure and frictionless real-time settlement and trading for both digital and traditional assets, and we think that's possible, and I talk about this in this lecture. Now, what is our belief system? We think that digital assets and digital financial instruments and services are the future. But we also think that banks, asset managers, and infrastructure providers like exchanges will have their firm place in the new world as well. We have decades-old know-how how to take care of assets and liabilities for our clients. We have a huge franchise. So it is obvious that something has to happen. But I think it's also obvious that banks and asset managers and exchanges are here to stay even in the new world. What we need is a bridge technology which will be able to link traditional and digital assets. What we are currently witnessing is a certain institutionalization of blockchain and distributed ledger technology. We had the first DAX corporation issuing a bond. We had the EIB also issuing a blockchain-driven bond. Nonetheless, we are probably only at the very beginning of a 10-year phase where we will see massive adoption of digital instruments in the financial industry. But the idea is that once you have a common platform, it can come to fruition very quickly. And why is that? Most financial instruments, most assets have a duration between 5 to 7 years. And this also means that most hedges also have a duration of 5 to 7 years. So once you actually have a common and acknowledged platform to move from the traditional world into a pure digital world and platform, you will see a rapid adoption of the new technologies. And nobody at the moment in the banking sector and in asset management actually at the moment has an infrastructure to deal with this incoming revolution. What is more, there is no common innovation platform in the financial industry. So when you talk about financial industry, you usually talk about transaction platforms, right? So there are exchanges, there are custodians, there are brokers, there are all kind of people who help you when you have to do a certain transaction. That is no problem. And innovation actually takes place in these transaction silos. There is no concept of a decentralized idea to foster innovation. Now, people like Apple, Facebook, and Amazon, to a certain extent also Ethereum, have come up with the idea not to only allow for execution-based platform, but also to offer an innovation platform at the same time. And this is exactly what we would like SWIAT to be. On the one hand side, it should allow for atomistic settlement, issuance, and custody for digital and traditional assets. At the same time, it will allow also for people to come up with their own financial contracts, with their own derivatives, and bring them onto the platform. Create new business models, but based on a common understanding of how financial assets and liability should be settled. Now, how do you start? There's always a chicken and egg problem. Investors are only going for a platform where they know their issuers. Issuers, on the other hand, will only go for a platform where they know that there's investors. Now, we think that you can crack this with asset. Any financial markets always start with an asset. We already brought traditional securities onto our blockchain. Our next step will be to bring digital securities onto the blockchain within the next couple of weeks. We're talking here about digital Namensschuldverschreibung, a German specialty, which is relatively easy to digitize. So this is what we will do next. We now, of course, have a law in Germany, so in due course, we should be able to issue some crypto assets, and we're in discussions with the central bank, the Banque de France, and the Bundesbank to also see how we can link these asset blockchains into the payment systems within the central bank arena. And if you bring these assets together, so if you have a certain asset pool, and I don't think that this has to be billions of new assets to start with, but if you bring together a certain asset pool, then you can start to create an ecosystem for servicing of these assets. And among the most important services that we actually have in the asset space, of course, first you need to have an issuance platform. People have to be able to issue securities in a structured way onto this platform. And well, if you issue it into the platform, then of course you have to be able to hold it and to administer the securities. So what you will need is a digital custody platform as well. And then coming from a trading point of view, just holding and issuing is just one part. The other very important part is how do you move securities? So how do you move securities in a securities lending transaction? How do you move securities when you are financing them? How do you move securities when you are buying and selling in the secondary market? So you need a flow protocol. At the moment, we actually have established the digital collateral protocol. This is already working. We have been checking this out in real production with a couple of different counterparties, funds, our bank and another bank, and working with other banks to bring them onto the digital collateral protocol as well. And as indicated, within the very next weeks, we will be issuing the first digital assets into our platform as well, and we will have basic digital asset custody functionality here on the platform. So this is what we plan, and this is what we have at the same time. So we create first this asset pool, then we create certain functionality around this asset pool, the digital collateral protocol, digital issuance, and digital custody. So this is within reach. We're talking just about a couple of weeks when we will be able to prove that in real production. And of course, with crypto securities coming in, we will need digital custody and digital commercial bank money at some stage as well. The idea to a certain extent in what we do is we use distributed ledger technology as a tool. We leave the roles and responsibilities of the market incumbents constant. We don't touch that. And I feel that this is important because it's very difficult to sell to bankers and asset managers a new technology and telling them that if you are successful, they will all lose their jobs. So, and the same actually goes to a certain extent when you talk to central banks, right? Central banks are quite nervous about the role that digital currency could play in the future. So the idea should be that we link our asset blockchain into the existing payment structures of the central banks and leave their roles and responsibilities constant. And only if that is the case in our belief system, we will be successful in bringing this new technology into the banking sector. So it is compliant with regulatory standards. This actually also means that we are not doing everything at the moment. We're just doing what we can, what is allowed within the current framework. So regulation to a certain extent could be a limiting factor, but I think what we have also learned is that we can create infrastructure which is compliant with regulatory standards and at the same time decentralizes current markets as well. So where are we at the moment? We have done 400 million euros in securities lending, transaction and collateral management. We have done that between funds, us and another banks. We have different custodians involved and are working now with a couple of banks to bring them onto this platform as well. We created actually a new execution type or trade type in securities lending. In the old world, actually in the current world, you deliver a security and then you want to receive collateral, you want to receive another security. At the moment, this actually is always in a so-called free of payment standard, which means you don't know when your collateral arrives. You place collateral with your counterparty and you don't know when your collateral comes in. That is a problem. We showed and proved that on blockchain, you can actually do a delivery versus delivery type of transaction. We have been quite successful in the rollout of this infrastructure in our bank. And partly this is because we introduced a new philosophy, which is first transaction on the book. So we always try to talk with people and also with our counterparties in the banking industry, not about some proof of concepts. We always come from the proposition to say, okay, let's see what are natural transactions for you. What are transactions you really like to do? What are transactions that you need to do? And then we are looking for the right setup to bring them onto a blockchain. This could be a first network. Of course, many counterparties at the moment in Germany that we are discussing the SWIAT infrastructure with, but we are also talking to Asian banks and to UK banks and also to US banks in order to set up this new common settlement platform for digital and traditional assets. Now, the idea usually is that when we approach a potential counterparty, a participant on this network, we offer them to set up a node within 6 weeks. We help them in building out the necessary infrastructure. We have a couple of different use cases: securities lending, collateral management, the issuance of digitalized assets, the custody of assets, and hopefully, relatively quickly, once we found a solution, also settlement in cash on that platform. So we enter into discussion to find out where's the sweet point or where are the most pressing points for our banks, and then we offer use cases in which they actually can realize transaction on the blockchain. I always tend to tell people that this is probably the cheapest way to get your feet wet when it comes to blockchain. Because we have built it, we know it works, it's regulatory compliant from our view. Everybody has to check this for himself, of course, and then you're in. Within 6 weeks, you can do your first transaction on the blockchain, and then you can see whether this is something that should be interesting for your corporation. It's more than a sandbox because it's a real transaction. So summarizing, we think capital markets start with assets. This is why we are currently setting up an asset pool with more issuance coming within the next couple of weeks. We already have done transactions on the DCP, the Digital Collateral Protocol, with traditional assets. We are now going for digital assets, which will be coming in the next couple of weeks. We will have basic functionality for digital assets in custody, and we're currently working on a payment solution for central or commercial bank money on our infrastructure. And at this point, we will have created a micro ecosystem, a micro capital market based on blockchain. And we think that this is a very interesting business proposition for banks, asset managers, and infrastructure providers alike. And this is, of course, why we would look forward to people engaging with us, discussing trade ideas, and seeing in how far this is probably the nucleus to create a first viable ecosystem in capital market instruments based on blockchain. Thank you very much, and I wish you a great day.
Thank you very much, Michael Cyrus. If you want to, there's one question from the audience. I think it's a short one to answer if you're interested.
Yeah, okay.
The question would be, do you cooperate with the BIS, with a, and I need you to correct me if if I say something wrong, which is performing transactions from Asia to the Middle East, so where the People's Bank of China cooperates with, I think, the United Arab Emirates. Do you have cooperations in the sense?
We do have a very large bank out of Asia.
The microphone, please.
We do have a very large bank in Asia with whom we are discussing concrete use cases. And who could be quite interested also in joining our infrastructure, but we have not talked to the BIS so far.
Okay.